Welcome into the Saints Insider Podcast, a special summer episode for you today where, well, we're going to get negative for you here in the middle of the summer. It's hot. It feels a long way from football. And we're going to talk about our answer to one question. Are the Saints the worst team in the NFL? Some would say yes. You'll find out what we think. What do you think?
Well, we're about to find out, aren't we?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
We're going to figure it out right now in July.
Let's talk about if they are the worst team in football. I don't think they are.
It's hard to pick. I mean, it's just like it's hard to pick, okay, who's the best team?
Yeah, I agree.
It's hard to pick exactly who's going to be the worst team.
And there's so many factors that end up going into it, and there is just so much room for variance with this particular Saints team. I don't think that means like variance between 4 wins and 13 wins, but like, I mean, they got new play callers, new players. They're younger. It's going to look different. It just feels like a lot of projecting to say they are going to definitively be the worst.
I was so excited to get controversial, I forgot to introduce us. I'm Zach Ewing. That's Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, Matthew Paris. This is the Saints Insider. And I don't know, Rod, like Super Bowl odds, we could start there. The 300-1 at DraftKings, that nobody else is worse than 250-1. They are the longest shot to win the Super Bowl. Just by the math, people are projecting the Saints to be very bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can be a bad team, but I don't think they're the worst team. But does that make you feel better that they're not the worst
right,
team?
yeah. If you check in at number 25, are you doing like, I don't think anybody feels good about that. But
right.
I don't know. Well, let's
Saints fans probably want to be the worst team.
Yeah, see, this is
You'd
where
almost rather be 32, yes. Yeah.
This is where
This
it gets
might be
really,
a positive show to them.
This is where it gets really interesting is like, we'll get into it, but like, I think the last place you want to be is like the 15th best team.
Yeah.
Which is where they've been pretty much.
Although
with the exception of last year.
I would argue that if this year's team ends up being there again and they go 8-9 and they're the 15th best team, that's a very positive development.
There's one way I would agree with that.
It's the quarterback, dummy.
If they're 8-9 because they've got good quarterback play, then you feel really good about it because their cap is going to be cleaned up soon. They feel like they have a long-term answer, a quarterback who's on a cheap deal. Then you're starting to feel good about it. You're like, okay, our coach is good. Our roster is better than people expected. Our quarterback is ascending, somebody we can build around. Then you feel really good about it. If they go 8-9 because they stay healthy this year and their roster around the quarterback is better, but their quarterback is not good enough to elevate what actually is a decent roster.
Get some close game luck, that sort of thing. Yeah.
And then you're picking 14th in the draft and you don't have a future set at quarterback, then that is the worst case scenario to me.
I don't really see a scenario where they go 8-9 with bad quarterback play though. Like I think if they 8-9, that means Shough or Rattler must have been
at least decent.
But
yeah, I agree.
But
with
yeah,
that
that would be a really bad scenario.
But like
for
decent is if they're decent, but clearly not somebody who's worth building around.
Right.
Like that's
bad.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right, because then they're stuck next year where they're like, okay, well, we still don't feel like we have the answer at quarterback, and now we don't have the assets to get the quarterback.
Right.
That's the problem. That's where they really can't they can't be in the middle there.
Right.
Matthew Paris has been quiet through all of this. I need to get his take because he is a veteran of covering some bad football teams. Where do you come down on this discussion?
I think there is a scenario where they could be like 8-9 and you don't get the quarterback play that you wanted, but I think it could still be okay. Like, maybe you face a bunch of like second string quarterbacks and you hit like the injury parade and just like win that way.
Yeah.
And like, but the tough spot that the Saints are in right now is even if, let's say Shough looks less than impressive. He starts the whole year. They somehow win 8-9 games. I think the front office is going to I think this will be the general consensus is that, all right, he's a rookie. He can play better, and we don't need to feel like an upgrade. They're not going to replace him if he has a subpar rookie season because rookies have subpar seasons all the time. Like, he would need to be catastrophic, and they would still somehow need to win like a amount of games for them to actually try and, they had the 14th pick. Maybe they're going to try and trade up into the top 3. Like, but that I feel feels like very unrealistic to me compared to bottoming out or just being like, okay. I think if they win 8 or 9 games or even like 7, I think that's going to be like a, wow, look at the coaching staff. Look at the job they did rather than, wow, these quarterbacks are a lot better than we thought they were.
And they do play some teams that are in this worst team in the NFL conversation, so that
Yes.
might help you out a little bit. So that you might
Yes.
sneak 3 or 4 wins there. And
Well, and I think if they're okay, so just to keep things on that topic, if they're anywhere near okay, were they good in the right way or are they good in the wrong way? Like they're clearly not the worst team in the NFL if that happens. I mean, they're above that level. Right. But to your point, Rod, we can't really answer the question of who is the worst team in the NFL. Is it the Saints? Without looking at some of the other candidates. So I have the odds board up here. Here are the teams with longer than 100-1 odds to win the Super Bowl, besides the Saints, who are 300-1. Okay, Las Vegas Raiders 120-1, Indianapolis Colts also 120-1, Carolina Panthers same odds 120-1, Tennessee Titans, New York Giants both 200-1, New York Jets, Cleveland Browns both 250-1. So I think that's your group of like 8 teams. Is there anyone else you'd throw in there as far as possibly being the worst team in the NFL this year? I think we covered all of our bad bases.
Sorry, Rod, but the Steelers, if Aaron Rodgers...
He just bought. But the
Maybe
Steelers
just
are,
enough
man,
stat.
Mike
But they have
Tomlin's
a really
never
good-
bad. He's
Yeah.
never bad.
You expect... Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers had to be.
Aaron Rodgers, but also
Have to really
Mason
do that.
Rudolph. Like, maybe Rodgers cares,
Don't say it, man.
Well, but like I think we
play.
like if we're going into this and we're trying to set like realistic expectations, you have to just assume that everything is going to play out like normal.
That's true.
Right?
There's always a
like,
surprise bad team.
Right.
Sure.
Nobody expected the 49ers last year to be one of the worst teams in football, but they were because they had awful injury luck.
They had the year from hell
Right.
team to use
So
them.
like, so I think you have to go into this with a baseline understanding that okay, the quarterback is going to play. They're going to have a normal amount of injuries.
No one thought the Jaguars would be the top 5 pick last year. Like
Right. So like there's always going to be surprises. There's going to be some circumstances that like play out. I think the circumstances definitely harmed the Saints last year and made them be a team that's picking in the top 10 and finish 4th in the division.
Of the list that you just gave, 2 stood out to me as, maybe they could be like the worst team. One is the Colts, just because you don't know what the quarterback situation there.
Indiana Jones, baby.
It feels like that regime has kind of had its, Jim Irsay passed away, the daughter's taking over, the GM might be in trouble. Like things could really bottom out from like I think it may be a culture perspective and just the quarterback uncertainty. And then the Giants, I think the Giants are just kind of a mess. And they have a really impressive defensive line, but elsewhere, I don't know. And consider the quarterback play there too. Like the quarterback play for Indianapolis and New York, I think could be a lot worse than here. And that would put them in contention for the first overall pick.
Maybe both New York teams, honestly.
Yeah, and Rod mentioned this, but the Saints play 5 games against those other 7 teams. They play the Panthers twice, Giants, Jets, and Titans. So you're going to have an opportunity to either prove or disprove that you're the worst team.
Prove yourself one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the concerns about the Saints obviously is the quarterback play. I mean, they don't have a quarterback that's won a game in the NFL. So I think if you look at it just from a quarterback perspective, I can kind of understand why people put them at the bottom because, I mean, you mentioned the Giants. I think the Giants' quarterback situation is probably, I mean, I'd take Russell Wilson or Jackson Dart over who the Saints have. So,
I think the Browns
there.
are the only one you
The
could
Browns would
argue
be the one,
are in worse shape at quarterback than the Saints. And even then, I
But even
think I'd
Flacco,
take
I
the
mean,
Browns. Yeah.
You take your chances with Flacco over Shough and
Right,
Spencer
because he's
Rattler.
done
To
it
win an
before.
individual
Right,
game.
just to win a game.
He's
Sure.
done it
He's
before.
done it.
Or to just win 6 games, say, and not be the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't say Shadur, though. Should I just...
Should don't. I mean, like, I just, I don't know. Like, the Browns, I think, have a pretty good offensive play caller, even though it's been a disaster over there with the Deshaun Watson situation. Like, you could see them squeezing something out of that offense, even though their collection of, like, skill position players and is not good, and the offensive line plays kind of decline there a little bit. Like, you could see a path for a lot of these teams. you could see it for the Saints, but like I think there's a reason they're all grouped in at the bottom, and a lot of it is the quarterback. Even like the Panthers, like Bryce Young was pretty good over the last like 8 games of the season last year, but like, is that indicative of how he's going to play this year, or is he going to regress to being the same player he was for the first 25 games of his career, or 23 games of his career, whatever it was? Like, I think there's just a lot of, I don't know, opportunity for this to get kind of funky at the bottom.
Yeah, I think all of those teams probably have at least something to hang their hat on where the Saints maybe don't. PFF ranked the rosters, I think, like late May, so it was, mostly complete.
Before they
the
added
draft,
Cam Akers.
free agency. Before the Saints added Cam Akers. Big difference maker. They had the Saints 30th. They had them ahead of the Titans and the Browns. The Saints do have, they do have some areas on their roster that are sort of left over from their competitive era of just a couple years ago, where you look at that and go, that is not a secondary maybe that is emblematic of a bottom 32 team. Although, as I'm saying that, I'm struggling to find the position group that is obviously not, Alvin Kamara is obviously not a bottom quarter running back in this league. Their wide receivers, if healthy, you don't think are bottom quarter. So you can kind of look around and see places where that's where they're not, the bottom of the barrel, according to PFF.
Yeah, but like, I think when you look back at some of those really good Saints teams, they were deep, and I just don't think this one is. Like, they have really, really good players on this team, players that other teams covet. I mean, you just wrote a story about Chris Olave and like, being mentioned in trade rumors for like 25 other teams because everybody wants him. So he's a really good young player. But like, Olave played 6 complete games last year. Rashid Shaheed played 6 complete games last year. Alvin Kamara has missed at least like 3 games for most of his professional career. Eric McCoy, it might be their best player on their roster, pound for pound, and he played like 6 games last year. Like, these guys got to show they can stay on the field, and if they can like revert back to normal injury luck to good injury luck, like they could definitely exceed expectations, especially if they're smart play callers and Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley, who both have a history of success in those roles, can get more out of this roster.
Yeah.
But like, there's just as clear of an avenue for it not to work.
So the wheels to fall off, like some of these guys would have to play. Like we saw last year, Spencer Rattler throwing to Mason Tipton, Dante Pettis, like Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Like, no disrespect to those guys.
That was some preseason type stuff.
Yes, like that. That's the lineup you're charting out, and like I was gonna say 4th preseason game of the year that doesn't even exist anymore. The 3rd preseason game where you're resting your starters and you're just like trying to survive till week 1. Like, those are lineups that the Saints were rolling out last year, and we saw how the quarterback struggled. Like, the Saints are gonna like pass expectations. You need the supporting cast to kind of elevate the quarterback play, and if some of these guys are hurt, it's just not going to happen.
And even on the flip side, I think the defense still has to be good. If the defense the defense could kind of carry this team or just be good enough, and the offense can just get enough to get it done. But I don't know if this defense is like that anymore. So that's
what I worry about is like 2 years ago when the offense was really struggling and you didn't know, who was even lining up on the O-line. At least you could say, well, this defense can win them some games.
At least keep you in some games.
Yeah, if the defense bottoms out, then what have you got?
Yeah, well, the defense bottomed out last year.
Right.
And they stayed relatively healthy. Minus obviously like the Paulson Adebo and Marshawn Lattimore thing. But like, they stayed pretty healthy up front. They stayed pretty healthy at safety. Demario Davis played. Did he play all 17 games last year? It was close. 16 maybe?
Yeah, he missed a game, I think, for a concussion.
Their defense just underperformed. Yeah, maybe they can get more out of it with Brandon Staley. Even if they could be like the number 22 defense in the NFL, it would be a big improvement from last year, even if it's not great. And you could see that maybe happening, but I don't know. That side to me is the one that's more concerning.
Yeah, that's concerning. Yeah,
I will point out that maybe we'll save this because we're going to talk about reasons that you could be optimistic that they're better than what people are saying for the end of the show. So I'm going to save that. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk, kind of that optimism, and then also I want to spend some time on like the rookie quarterback coach aspect of this. If Tyler Shough wins the job, and how likely historically can there be success with that combo? So let's take a break. We'll be back.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. With quick picks, you can tap right into pre-built, ready-to-bet parlays right from the home screen. And if you miss tip-off, no worries. You can play same-game parlays live during the action. Plus, it's never been easier to find and bet on the biggest matchups of the day, so you can keep up with all the action. Caesars Sportsbook, proud partner of the NBA and the only sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards. Download it today.
Welcome back to the Saints Insider. Encourage everybody to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can search up Saints Insider on YouTube or the New Orleans Saints at NOLA.com YouTube channel. Also putting up practice videos, interview videos left over from mini camp. We'll, of course, have all that coverage from training camp. You can also find our work at NOLA.com/Saints. Talking through whether the Saints are the worst team in the NFL. They have the worst Super Bowl odds. By the way, did you see, this has been a couple weeks ago now, a bettor in Louisiana at Caesars Sportsbook bet $746.67, very odd amount. I guess that's what's left in the checking account, on the Saints to win the Super Bowl, to win, I believe, $185,000.75.
This is what you call degenerate behavior.
That's even for me. Like, I could never be me.
Don't blame me for believing in these guys.
But why 746.67?
I think he literally just emptied out his savings account or checking account.
The only thing is, I will say, is like an amount, the amount he would win. I mean, this is how confident he is. The amount he would win is, I had it wrong, $168,075. So he was trying to even off the amount he would win, maybe. But it's just 746.67. If that happens, we will find that gentleman or lady and interview them on this podcast.
We won't have to find him.
I mean, I don't know what possesses you.
He's safe.
People play some crazy parlays and all that stuff. This one's right up there with anything.
That is
Maybe
that's where you call the hotline, the you need help hotline.
That's right. That's overboard.
Maybe they just hit the wrong button. They thought they were placing it on the Seahawks or something, and they just.
I'm trying to think of teams that are close to New Orleans.
And not New England.
New England, maybe. That
New York. No.
It would be the New York teams. Yeah, I don't. There's no alphabetical.
Maybe they just closed their eyes.
Philadelphia, would Philadelphia be after New Orleans? Maybe so. Maybe they meant to place it on the Eagles. So, okay. One big reason for the pessimism around this team is obviously rookie head coach, rookie quarterback combo. Now Spencer Rattler could win the job. He's a second-year guy. He's not a rookie. But if it is Shough, and even if it's Rattler, he's obviously still very green, especially with a first-team type offense around him. So I went back and looked at a few, in the last 20 years of the NFL, rookie head coach and quarterback combos to see, oh boy, how bad does it get? It's not as bad as you think. 3 of them have made the playoffs in the last 15 years. Rex Ryan with Mark Sanchez made the playoffs and went 9-7, 2009.
Team was loaded, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Philbin with Ryan Tannehill in the 2012 Dolphins. They went 7-9. They didn't make the playoffs, but they were at least respectable. That same year, this is a different deal. Chuck Pagano and Andrew Luck with the Colts. You obviously had the number one generational player. They went 11-5 and made the playoffs. Doug Peterson with Carson Wentz. Anybody?
Number 2 pick overall.
I was gonna say we're just naming
they
top
went
10 picks.
7-9, and then the other one again, a top 2 pick would be DeMeco Ryans and C.J. Stroud from the Texans a couple years ago. So it's not like a death knell. I mean, it actually hasn't happened that often. But if you look at this Saints roster, that's what from the outside looking in you'd be worried about. Is man, they don't have any experience at head coach or quarterback.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's even less the head coach. I think there should be some excitement for what Kellen Moore can bring to the offense just because of his track record of success. I think it's squarely on the quarterback. I think that the odds are reflecting the lack of belief in either Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shough to get the job done. Because you're talking about historical outliers. All those quarterbacks you mentioned are first-round draft picks.
There was one more I meant to mention. 08 Ravens, John Harbaugh, Joe Flacco.
First-round draft pick.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the number 40 overall pick. Go back and look. For every Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott, the guys who are like day 2, day 3 picks who are successes. There are like
Russell Wilson.
tons and tons of guys who just did not pan out. I mean, I think Ian Book was picked with like the 131st pick and Dak was picked with like the 134th pick. Those are two vastly different players. And there's a lot more Ian Books than there are Dak Prescotts.
How big is that vastly different?
Yeah, it's like the Pacific Ocean, you know? It's huge. So, like, I think that to me, like, you're talking about a second-round pick rookie and a second-year player who was a fifth-round pick. Even if those two guys were like kind of talked about as potential first-round guys, which they were in the days leading up to the draft, both of them, that's not what they ended up being. So that to me is like the source of the depressed expectations for the Saints. Beyond, there's obviously a lot of questions about the roster, the aging contributors on defense, the health questions on offense. But like, I think this is less a reflection of Kellen Moore and more of a reflection of the situation that he is coming into. But I do think that they're like recent examples, like Sean Payton's not a first-year head coach, obviously. He's somebody who has a Super Bowl win as a head coach, tons of success as an offensive play caller. But like just last year, I mean, I was listening to a podcast last year calling the Browns one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and they made the playoffs, or one of the worst rosters in the NFL.
Broncos.
I said the Browns. But like,
you'd be right about the
You could actually say 2 years ago the Browns, though.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this stuff happens where, you know, new players come in, the expectations are still really low. People like, Cortland Sutton hasn't done anything in years, and then he comes out and he looks great in this offense with Bo Nix throwing him the ball. I think this is there are plenty of examples of this actually working out better because you get new pieces in there and things click for some players in ways they didn't before. Like, there is reason to look at this and think that it could work out. But like, there's also plenty of reasons not to think it for all the stuff I just mentioned.
I was gonna say we talk about the quarterback play, and that's kind of the reason for the skepticism. But even if Derek Carr was here, what are we going up? Two more wins projected, maybe?
I mean, I don't think anyone's in worst team in the NFL talk at that point. But it's not. You're not like a playoff team. I don't think.
Right.
Oh, yeah, the floor was much higher with Carr. But like, I also think that, I mean, going just eliminating the local reaction to Carr and, you know, and what they felt about him here, I think the just general understanding of him was he was like the league average quarterback. Right? If you're better than Derek Carr, then you're a above average quarterback. If you're worse than Derek Carr, and you're a below average quarterback. So like, the ceiling is like 10 wins with Derek Carr.
Yeah, I mean, Carr's actually a pretty relevant example of a second-round pick thriving into being a good quarterback. Now,
his rookie year was not
even then
good,
he was
though.
awful.
Yeah, it was not,
You know, they weren't good his rookie year. I mean, there's Will Levis, another second-round pick who really struggled out the gate, and now he's going to lose his starting job to Cam Ward in Tennessee. The thing I think is maybe an interesting wild card here for the Saints is Shough's age.
Yeah.
We've seen, like you mentioned, Bo Nix, because having all that experience in college help him right away. You know, Michael Penix looked great last year.
Jaden Daniels, an older rookie. Yeah.
Like, I wonder if this is like the start of a new trend in the NFL where like these guys have played a lot in college. They come in and they hit the ground running a little bit faster than you would think. I think that's maybe the upside argument for these guys.
I will say, I've heard people say there's no way the Saints can win 8 games. There's no way they can make the playoffs. There's no way this. There's no way. I actually think the ceiling is a little bit of an unknown just because of that. We don't know how good Tyler Shough could be. Spencer Rattler, we have a better idea, but again, we didn't get to see him with the first team. And Kellen Moore could be a wild card. I mean, what if he's just this wonderkind play caller who's going to make it work with anybody? I don't think those things are likely. I'm not picking them, but I do think that the ceiling is a little bit of a like, oh, there's no way the Saints can win 10 games. Really? Because you just mentioned the Broncos last year. Like, we don't know that for sure until the games start.
Yeah.
Yeah, teams turn it around. I mean, it happens. And
there's a worst to first team every single year in the NFL.
It can definitely happen. Yeah.
Like, am I going to
bet?
Am I going to bet on it? No. I'm not going to put $745.67 on it. But like, can I see that happening? Absolutely. Like, Yeah, I still think that I'm going to pick this team to have a down year because that is like the most plausible outcome. But like, if you're saying that there's no way it's possible, I just think you're wrong. Like, weird stuff happens in the NFL, and I do think that they have a good coaching staff in place, which is like, honestly, that is such a huge factor working in their favor. That like I don't think it's talked about enough outside of like the top 3 offensive play callers in the NFL. Like if you have like a good infrastructure and then you also benefit from some positive injury luck, which is like gonna need to happen for this team to be successful. I'm like, yeah, you could absolutely see them exceeding expectations in a big way.
I'm a little bit more reserved about the coaching staff just because I'd like to see it. I mean, the track record is certainly promising. But, you do see, like, as much as Saints fans hope that, Kellen Moore is the next Sean Payton, you see rising offensive coordinators not be as, like, exciting once they get to be a head coach. I'm thinking specifically of a guy like Adam Gase.
Arthur Smith.
Like, there are people who are really good offensive coordinators that when the time comes, they're just like, okay, head coaches. And Kellen Moore, I think, fits the profile of being kind of like a top or, an above average coach, but I just kind of have to see it. And defensively, too, I mean, Brandon Staley, he's been a defensive coordinator 1 year with the Rams. It was great. But then his team's kind of struggled with the Chargers, his defenses. Like, I kind of just need to see how that piece comes together. And especially this year where I feel like the defense is really in transition. Like, I think year 2 is going to be the tell for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the one thing I will say on Staley is I think that I think it's a lot harder for a for a defensive head coach, like somebody who goes from a defensive coordinator to a head coach, to maintain that level on that side of the ball. We've seen
We saw
more
it firsthand right here.
exactly.
It
I
just
still
seems to be
think
more common
Dennis
that
Allen's
that
one of the best defensive
I
coordinators
do
in
too.
football,
I do.
but it fell off with him. Brandon Staley went from having the number 1 defense, I think in both scoring and total defense, to being kind of a middle of a pack defense in San Diego, despite having some pretty good players.
Los Angeles, but yeah.
Yeah, they're still Chargers to me. Damn it. I just like Vic Fangio is not a very good head coach. He just authored one of the best defensive seasons we've seen with the Eagles. Like,
I wonder if Raheem Morris isn't in that bucket too.
right?
Yeah.
And that's like
So the Broncos, at least for Fangio, the Broncos' defenses were good when he was the coach there. But yeah,
yeah, but like I think like it's just that to me is just a pattern where
Wade Phillips,
where you see defensive coordinators become head coaches. Their defenses aren't as good. As soon as they're back to being just like focusing on the defensive side of the ball, they're awesome again. We're gonna see it with Staley one way or another. I mean, I'm not saying they're gonna have a top 5 defense this year. I think that'd be extremely optimistic. But like, I do think that just getting back to focusing on that one specific side of the ball will make things better. And he's given kind of free reign over this by Kellen Moore, who's going to be focusing more on the offensive side of the ball, even though he's got the head coach responsibilities. So I think the setup that they have now is more conducive to success at the NFL level than what they were trying to do before with DA being the head coach and also focusing on the defense. I
got to say, I led this off with saying this was going to be a negative show. So if you stuck with us, you were rewarded, I think, with quite a bit of optimism. Like
I'm a glass half full kind of guy, even though my glass is half empty right now.
Well, that's definitely Luke is our glass half full guy. If we need Dunk here to sit there and
Dunk could be crapping on the team.
2-15 max. But I did want to kind of wrap up because I thought we would be more negative with maybe some reasons that the Saints wouldn't end up being the worst. And I don't know. Have we reached a consensus that saying that they're going to be the worst team in the NFL is overblowing it? Like, I don't think they will be.
No, I mean, I definitely think there's still a chance. There's like they could end up with like the number 1 or number 2 pick next year. It wouldn't be a surprise. But like
yeah, just like you say, you don't know what their ceiling is. We don't know what the floor is with this group either.
Yeah, and it could just be that they've just got a bunch of guys in their roster who get hurt,
or get older than they already are. Like, there's a lot of variables where the bottom can fall out real quick here.
But if the Saints are a surprise team, I think the number 1 thing that tips in their favor, the obvious thing, is the quarterback play.
Sure.
Like if they get something resembling league average play, or even close to that, out of Shough or Rattler, then we're not having this conversation at all, Rod.
Right. I think, and again, I think the defense still has to be good, though. I think you can get average play out of Shough, and the defense could be really bad, and Shough's average play won't even matter at that point. So,
I still think you win enough games to not be the worst team in that.
oh, no,
But,
for sure.
I'm going to say that I think one of the things that will help them is I think their play on the front's going to be better.
That's where I was going next, offensive line.
Right.
Yeah.
I think their offensive line is going to be improved. Last year, they got some decent play out of a couple guys, but like they had so many injuries last year, it was really hard to feel really good about it. But Banks and Fuaga at tackle, I feel pretty good about right now. Obviously, we're going to see what it looks like in training camp and see if that's what they stick with. I've been on the record as saying I think Penning at guard is a really good move. And then Ruiz is fine at right guard. I think just like an average player, but he's not going to kill you. And Eric McCoy, if he stays healthy, is a really good center. And having a player of his caliber with a young quarterback, like he needs to stay on the field because that could be a true difference maker. And I think they're going to be better on the defensive front. I think that the switching schemes is going to, with some of the additions they've made, both with Broughton and with Godshaw, plus maybe minimizing some of Brzez's weaknesses, putting him in a different position, I think is going to help them out. I don't think they're going to be the number 31 run defense in the NFL this year. I don't know if they're going to be number 12 or 15, but I don't think they're going to be one of the worst in the NFL. So I think that's going to, like, their baseline is going to be a little bit, like, that's going to raise their floor a little bit.
I think the likely outcome here is, of all the things we've talked about, some will hit, some won't. So, the offensive line might be better than we thought before the season, like after last season, the improvements there help. But then Tyler Shough is still up and down. Like, I picked him to win 6 games on our season by season or game by game prediction show. I still feel comfortable in that range.
Yeah, the modal outcome is probably 5 or 6 wins.
Yeah.
And going back to Vegas odds, their win total is 5.5 right now. So I think that's probably right where we're at. Okay, so just to put a spin on what the title of this episode is, let's go. I think there's 4 major reasons, and there's 4 of us up here. So let's see if we can come up with all 4 of what I'm thinking. The Saints are the worst team in the NFL if 10 words or less.
If the bottom falls out, and if they are the worst team,
if they are the worst team, why? They are the worst team if this happens.
If the depth has to play and the quarterbacks suck.
Okay, you kind of took 2, but that's fine.
Oh,
Luke?
Sorry. Yeah. I'll stick
If
with
the
depth.
quarterbacks are as bad as Vegas thinks they are.
Rod?
I got to come up with something different. I go with the defense again. If the defense declines even more than it did last year.
Yeah, I think those are all good. And then the last one I would just say is if the coaching staff is in over its head.
Yeah.
Which we don't. There's such a young staff, we're not sure of that. Kellen Moore's never been a head coach. That's the other thing that is within the realm of possibility here. So
He called plays in a Super Bowl, man. I feel good about it. Like I don't think
that would be my least concerned one.
I think
but I mean,
I had to come. Matt took 2, so I had to come up with another one.
No, it's fine.
No, but I'm just saying, like I do feel really good about this coaching staff.
But injuries, quarterback play, defense, and I guess just depth, which is related to injuries, is probably the 4th one.
Yeah. I mean, the depth and injuries are tied together. I think they're starting 22 are. Yeah, I don't think they're close to bottom of the NFL, but it's just whether you can count on those guys to stay on the field.
All right, we promise our next episode will be more uplifting than this one. It'll be next week. We'll see you then on the Saints Insider. For our producer, Norman Bell, he's Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, and Matthew Paris. I'm Zach Ewing, and we'll see you next time.
Don't make a promise you can't keep, Zach.
I look forward to cashing my bet.